All right, Abdullateef Ishowo, editor, Insider Digital online newspaper, author and public affairs analyst, joins us now to bring insight into all of this. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Great. I know the issue of changing the service chiefs that has been on the front burner all the while. You've heard that, you've analyzed it, and so on. And overhauling the security architecture. When you sit down and listen to all of these rhetorics and complaints from Nigerians, what really goes through your mind?
Well, thank you very much for having me here again. Let me just simply say that we've not started taking security important in this part of the world. And if you look at it, man has always been conscious to be secure. But even right from the beginning, you know, John Locke wrote extensively on social contracts. And he made us understand that it is a contract between the state and the people. And the underlying factor, the most important there, is that I am submitting my allegiance. In fact, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, later in the 18th century, goes further by telling us that it is a kind of covenant that I submit my allegiance to the state, to the actors in the state. In return, you give me security. You secure me in all aspects of life. If you fail to secure me, then I retrieve.
You failed in your own part of the contract.
I retrieve my allegiance. That's why I said he went a step further than John Locke. I retrieve my allegiance. So Nigerians are now clamoring for overhauling, meaning that we are ready to retrieve our allegiance in the face of not being well protected. So if you look at what is happening across the country, you will agree with Nigerians. But how ready is the Nigerian government? And what do we talk? What do we say about overhauling? What do we want to overhaul? Do we have a well-organized security system? Nigeria has never been secure right from independence. But we have a professionalized army in the early 60s, in the early 70s and 80s. What happened between the 90s and now, especially between in 1999 when democracy returned and now? If you take the statistics of the death toll between 1999 and 2019, it is alarming, and you cannot lay the blame on just one administration. Right from Obasanjo administration to Yar'Adua to Jonathan and now to Buhari, we've been experiencing the same thing. So if we are now calling for overhauling, where do we start the overhauling from? From the military, from the police? So if the National Assembly is saying we should overhaul our security architecture now, are they talking about removing the security chiefs? That is not an end. It's a means to an end. Okay, are they telling us that by merely increasing the fund that never goes down to the targeted will
change anything?
Will change anything. So overhauling the security system, the question we should ask now is, even though we've been having security challenges from the 60s, how did Buhari meet Nigeria on May 29, 2015? You know, Jonathan tried. But unfortunately, if you look at what happened then, from the Chibok's girl kidnapping, from killings of Boko Haram here and there, you know, toward the tail end of Jonathan, around April 2015, he took a step by ensuring that it chased the Boko Haram sect back to the forest. But when Buhari came, the promise Buhari gave to us, I mean APC, before they come into power, are basically three. To tackle security challenges, to wage war on the economic comatose, and fight corruption. So if you look at what is happening now, we've not been able to, and if you look at economy and that of corruption, is a way of even securing you and I. But if you look at it in the real sense of it, we are not secure in any way. And Nigerians are now saying, we are calling for overhauling. But the question is that it is complicated. Where do we start the overhauling from?
It is complicated, like you have said, but we have a crisis on our hands, and something has to be done. If we are to start, from your point of view, where do we begin?
Where to begin is, one, we need to ensure that we decorrupt the military system. A situation whereby you fund the military and the money don't get down to the... We have seen a situation whereby the foot soldiers protested that the 1,500 that is assigned to be given to us on the battlefield is not getting to us. It has never happened in the history of this country. Now, we have to decorrupt the military system. If you look at the military schools, Air Force Base, command and so on and so forth. We have a situation whereby a colonel, captain, or whatever the case may be, will be the ADI, Assistant Director of Education, dictating to school principals. And if I tell you the enormous corruption going on through that, now reducing the standard of those schools from what we knew the schools to be yesterday. And that's why I'm surprised when people say it is better to have military boys in the reign of governance than these civilians, their civilian counterparts. They are as corrupt as their civilian counterparts. We have to decorrupt the military system, and we need to ensure that the divisions in the military is well tackled. It's a situation whereby you keep the service chiefs, even when they are supposed to have been retired. So the next person to the boss is expecting you to retire him because he has about 6 months to spend too. So thinking that if he retires, I will be the chief of army staff, for instance. So if you keep him there, you are denying me the chance of becoming chief of army staff, and I want to jeopardize whatever efforts he is putting up. So a lot of things has to be done in terms of being sincere. Sincerity on the part of the governance. It's the key here.
Nigerian military has been known to be very professional, and I guess politics and all of that should be taken away from all of those. Thank you very much, Abdullateef Ishowo, for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Right.
Well, joining us now is Abdullateef Ishowo, editor, Insider Digital online newspaper, author, and public affairs analyst. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like for you to touch on the national security strategy that was launched sometime last year. And one of the reasons was to ensure stability with regards to issues of insecurity, and also touch on issues of corruption, as well as tackle poverty. But since then and now, not much has been seen with regards to this issue of national security strategy.
Well, thank you. The professor who just left now talked about eating good food. So, and I was wondering how much food security do we have in this country? In a country where we are still battling with states to pay 30,000 naira minimum wage. To eat good apple now, you will have to eat two. You have 500 naira or 600 naira. So if you take that this morning, next morning, that will be running to around 18,000 naira.
Yeah, but the professor
so
said.
let's start from that.
Yeah, but the professor said it doesn't have to be expensive. Oranges are not expensive. Banana is not expensive. These are also different kind of foods.
I don't know which part of Lagos you live, because if you are coming from a village like me, you may get these things cheap or even free. But in a place like Lagos, I don't think you can eat good fruits without spending close to 1,000 naira daily. So when you look at that, it means that we are not even secure when we talk of the food we consume. And once you are battled with poverty, the chances of surviving in that country, Nzogola Ntalaja, is a serious threat on democracy. And he wrote that democracy is meaningless to somebody in a remote village. What concerns that person? He may not even know the correct pronunciation of Muhammadu Buhari or the spellings. But what concerns him or her is having 3 square meals on his table, if he has a table. So, by and large, you are not secured, no matter the kind of grammar you blow, no matter the kind of democracy you said you practice, either constitutional or constitutional. Once you are not having access to 3 square meals, you are not secure. So if you are bringing up overhauling the system, how do you overhaul a complicated system? Let's take the police, for instance. I talked about the Nigerian military the other time. Let me look into the Nigerian police now. The United Nations advises or projects that we should have a police to 400 people. Nigeria has met that target. But we have, by estimate, 381,000 police officers in Nigeria. It may interest you that 75% of them, that's running to 300,000 of them, are attached to one political or office holder or the other. From the president, to the wife of the president, to their aides, to the minister, to senator, to rep members, to governors, to local government chairmen. So, about 75% of them are attached to them. And the federal government itself last year told us that about 70,000 of them are ghost workers. Of that figure quoted from the NDC, that is 381,000 police officers in Nigeria. So how do you start? the overhaul in the police system. Then we have a police system where governor of a state, the chief security officer, do not have a say in the hierarchy of security in the state. And yet, we don't want to have Amateku. We don't have to have state policing. We don't want to have community policing. We want to maintain the centrality of policing Nigeria. So if you look at all this, where do you start the overhauling? The training of police in Nigeria, we take all sorts of people. Is it, you find a police officer looking so haggard like an Indian hemp smoker on the streets. How do you recruit the police in Nigeria? How do you train them? What kind of language do they speak on the streets? Do they understand that their primary function, constitutional function, is to protect you and I? Where do we start the overhauling?
All right.
If you
Now,
look,
Abdullateef, the House of Reps has raised objections to way that this insecurity is escalating, and they are recommending things to be done.
okay.
We know that the House of Reps or the National Assembly are saddled with the responsibility of making laws. The acts that even established the police in the first place, they have the powers to tinker with it, however way they feel or they deem fit. But right now, how much of their recommendation can trigger that overhaul that we talk about?
You mean of the National Assembly?
Yeah, the National Assembly.
These are people who has about 2 or 3 police officers attached to them. Are they ready to overhaul that? Why are they afraid? So if you look at what is happening, I think the overhauling should start from them, not from us. It's just like the theme, fighting corruption began with you. What was the theme all about last year? Let it begin with them, and we follow suit.
The change
Change
begins with me.
Change begins with me, thank you. It is from top to the bottom, not the other way around. The leadership in this country is the problem we have. They tell us what they cannot do. The police system in Nigeria, okay, people are saying that you should launch into community policing or state policing. People are talking about funding, and yet you are giving governors security votes on a monthly basis without deciding what they will do with it. Let them, if you employ, we should ask a question. How much is a constable taken in Nigeria as take home? If it is 50,000 naira, he has a wife, he has children, he will pay school fees. You are sending them on warfield, and the money accrued to him is not given to him by superior officers, and want to decorrupt the police system. Now the solutions are this. 1, the recruitment process has to be overhauled.
That's where it starts from.
That's where it starts from.
Okay.
Nigerians are certificated, not educated. If you look at the police on the streets, the kind of God language they speak, does not portray them as being educated. We have to start from there. Then they have to be motivated. How much are they taking on a monthly basis? Then training and retraining of the police has to commence immediately.
Right.
But if it is all about changing the service chiefs or the rep members just blowing grammars to tell Nigerians that they want to overhaul the system, we have not started, my brother.
Okay, we have to leave you here now. Abdullateef Ishowo, thank you so much for your insight.
Well, joining us now is Abdullateef Ishowo, editor inside the digital online newspaper, author, and public affairs analyst. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Nice to see you.
Now, in responding to this call, the federal government has said that if it has to, perhaps change the security chief or reject the security architecture, whichever way we look at it, it would be premature that perhaps funding is what it is looking at. I wonder how this comes to you, because we have a challenge on our hands and something has to be done to turn things around.
Well, it may not be too far from the truth. It depends on how important we say a security situation of the country. Robin Sharma states in one of his books that you take something important to you. If security is very important to them, of course, they will sit down to look into how we should nib it in the bud. If you look at the hierarchy, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, security came second after food and shelter. So it means that the police have to feed first. It has to be well funded. But the problem is the president or the government ready to track every money budgeted for security? In a situation whereby we budget or borrowed or sought the ascension of the National Assembly to use $1 million to buy firearms, Nigerians are still asking questions where that $1 million is because we didn't even see the firearms bought. So when we are talking about funding, are we ready to track and look into how this funding will be protected and be used for what it is meant for? It is only when we do that, because when we talk about overhauling, it has to do with, the situation is complicated. It's a very, we operate in a very complex environment. So if we're talking about overhauling and you're talking about funding, so how do you ensure that the funding is targeted towards the right channel? That's the first thing to be done. The second thing is that if you're telling Nigerians that it will be premature to send the service chiefs packing, you're still maintaining the same stance that Nigerian leaders always maintain, dictating what they want to us and not the other way around. We gave you the, our allegiance, we gave you our votes based on the fact that we want you to represent us, because everybody cannot be president, everybody cannot be senators. That doesn't mean our opinions don't count. I wonder why the president or the government has not summoned the courage to have a security summit where retired generals will participate, where technocrats will participate, where Nigerians, we have different ethnic groups. Let each ethnic group, let Ilori people, where I come from, say this is how we want to be secure. So let me participate in the process of securing myself.
Yeah, Abdullateef, the moment we get into that space of ethnic group and all of that, isn't that part of the challenge that we have? Now, the issue there is, months ago, a lot of Nigerians were saying, if you see the almost 90% of security chiefs and all of that come from a certain region of the country and all of that, should all of these ethnic groups, should it matter? Because the point there is we are Nigerians. Like you said, we've submitted our allegiance to the government to protect us. So insecurity doesn't know whether you are Muslim or you are Christian or you are Yoruba or you are Igide or you are Idoma or you are Igala or Igbira, as the case may be. So
as long as you're a Nigerian.
So long as you are Nigerian, shouldn't that be the number one thing?
My brother and sister, Professor Pius wrote a book. He titled it, Africa, You Are Not a Nation. I mean, you are not a country. So let me say, Nigeria, you are not a nation. We can't pretend it. In 1947 or thereabouts, I read somewhere that Zik dragged Sir Ahmadu Bello out of a conference in Kaduna. Ahmadu, let us forget our ethnic background. Let us forget our religious background. Let us unite to take this country to Eldorado. And Ahmadu Bello simply answered, is it possible for you as an Igbo man and a Christian to forget that you're an Igbo man and that you're a Christian? Let us rather use our differences to solve the situation, the problems of Nigeria.
But that was
so
in 1947.
you cannot remove the fact that we are different in everything apart from the color of our skin. So having that understanding will now enable us to look into how your community can be secured, mine can be secured. In a situation whereby you want to use a police officer from Ogbomoso to go and police Maiduguri, where he doesn't even understand their language. And when a Cameroonian comes into Maiduguri, they speak the same language. He recognizes him more than somebody from Ogbomoso, and you want that to continue being an operation in the country. We need to understand the fact that we have to tackle the security situation from the differences that occurs in Nigeria, because we are operating in a complex environment. And until we are able to do that, we may not be able to name the security challenges in the board.
Okay, well, we certainly thank you for your opinion. Thank you so much for your insight.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you.